must tell you very candidly that you've got quite a group here. And I don't know if you are aware of how rare such groups like this are with this much vitality, with the numbers. I commend you for that, and I hope that whatever you're doing, that it can be made contagious around the country. Apropos of my speech topic tonight, actually I never liked pickles all that much, but more about pickles a bit later on. What? No limo to take me to and from the airport? Well, bleep it, I quit. Just thought I would actually not quit, but make reference to a more interesting use of the First Amendment not long ago by an Alaska news reporter. More about her in a moment. I do, as a matter of fact, have not limousine chauffeurs, but I do have distinguished people to drive me around. Lyle Muller and Jeff Stein are driving me around during this stint, and that's right up there with former RT NDA and SPJ President Paul Davis, who drove me to and from the recent Illinois Broadcasters Association, and NAB honcho Paul Tinkle, who did the same for me in Tennessee. Paul, I always love introducing Paul, as I refer to the only man whose name is a complete sentence. But suffice it to say that I bring you greetings from your nation's capital. They had a slogan contest there a few years ago. It was a contest that just picked something that exemplified the nation's capital. I submitted Washington, D.C., all it's cracked up to be, which I regret to say did not win. Washington has an annual festival, Cherry Blossom Festival. It's a very big deal there. Actually, the cherry blossoms were, like so many things we enjoy, just another cheap Japanese import given to the First Lady a century ago, Mrs. William Howard Taft, by the Japanese ambassador. But they make a big deal of it. They have a cherry blossom festival. They crown a cherry blossom princess. They have a cherry blossom parade. And they hired me to be the MC one year. And I suggested that if they really wanted an event which exemplified Washington as we who live and work there know it, then they would have a pothole festival, and they would crown a pothole princess, and have a pothole parade, which, of course, you'd lose some floats in that, but that would solve part of the pothole problem. The fools never invited me back again, I'm sorry to say. I would seem to be the most obvious choice for tonight's remarks, given that I entered this august craft for the noble purpose of meeting girls. I grew up in the town of Lebanon, Missouri, which we refer to as the home of the Shiite rednecks, with gun racks on the back humps of our camels and so on. Very politically incorrect. I was sort of the white Steve Urkel of Lebanon, Missouri. I was sort of like, I guess, a young Conan O'Brien, but without the charisma and Cary Grant charm. But it occurred to me that I could, in fact, fulfill my goal of meeting girls if I could be on the local radio station, KLWT, which we called Keep Listening, We're Trying. I had been stacking 100-pound sacks of sugar in the summertime in an unair-conditioned warehouse for $1 an hour, which was the federal minimum wage at the time. I'm very old. And just 2 blocks away, they were letting people sit on their duffs in air-conditioned comfort, spin records, and flap their gums for the same $1 an hour. So I applied and was hired by the general manager, sales manager, program director, morning host, Jack Sellers, who told me that, Jim, we'd pay you what you're worth, but it's illegal. So I got the idea. Nonetheless, I was taken by this craft, this right to not only tell stories to others of what has taken place, but to be paid for the very privilege. I thought it was pretty great. It was in this line of work that I came across one of the most direct, accurate expressions of the First Amendment that I have ever heard. I work in Washington, the home of spin, the home of twist, the home of turn, of deflect. But I got a very direct answer one time. I was on WTOP radio at the time, and there was a robbery at a boutique in the Georgetown section of Washington, which quickly went bad, turned into a hostage situation. So we were all over it, covering the story, and I was on the air at that time. And at one point, the editor came in, and I'm talking on the air, and he points to the telephone on which there is one line blinking. He wants me to take that line. Now, I was relatively young in the business. I guess a cooler head would have gone to a break and found out exactly who was there, but I thought, no, let's plunge right ahead. I did not know who was on the line. Could have been one of our reporters, could have been an eyewitness, could have been a police officer, I had no idea. So I just poked the button onto the air and gave my best generic introduction. I said, good morning, this is Jim Bohannon from WTOP Radio. With whom am I speaking? And the voice on the other end of the line, the voice, so unlike so many I've talked to in Washington, the voice said, so simply, so directly, 4 words. He said, "You got the crook." I thought that was so refreshingly honest. Granted, his line of work was not probably predisposed toward honesty, but I felt that he had a real future there somewhere. I really did. I was very taken by the fact that this person genuinely thought that a straight answer would serve him well. I regret to say that the local district attorney subpoenaed air checks of that program and used that with voice prints to convict him, but neither here nor there. I've had a chance to ply the trade of journalism in a variety of settings, a few perhaps as dramatic as May of 1988 and the Reagan-Gorbachev summit in Moscow, the first event of which was the 2 first ladies in a tour of the Kremlin. They had a lot of wonderful cathedrals inside the Kremlin walls, and this one actually had Ivan the Terrible's throne in it. It was an amazing room. It was circular, it was kind of like a silo, a big silo, and they had all kinds of medieval tapestries, frescoes. It was beautiful. Now, I should tell you that the 2 first ladies, Raisa Gorbachev and Nancy Reagan, did not really care for each other that much, which was abundantly clear. And the point was that Raisa Gorbachev was to show Nancy Reagan the inside of this cathedral. And we had a pool reporter arrangement at the time. There wasn't a lot of room in there. I was the pool radio reporter. I had a big boom microphone that extended out about as far as the front table here. And I'm just simply trying to hear Nancy Reagan or Raisa Gorbachev's interpreter. Well, they proceeded to do a lap around that room that would have done credit to Dale Earnhardt. They were in a hurry to get this over with. I had the microphone right up to Raisa Gorbachev's left ear, at which time the pool TV cameraman leaned in for a close-up and hit my arm. And I went wham! And I slugged Raisa Gorbachev in the side of the head, hard. Her hands flew up to her head. I can see her to this day. She had on a cream-colored suit. And this KGB security type, who was standing right next to me, towered over me, huge man. And in his broken English, he said, "Don't do that." Which I thought was sage advice, frankly. Now, at the same time, there was another event taking place involving the 2 presidents, Mikhail Gorbachev and Ronald Reagan. Our White House correspondent, Peter Mayer, was covering them. And the police in Moscow were not that into glasnost and perestroika, the new openness that the Soviet Union showed toward the end. And a little police riot broke out when the 2 presidents were mingling with the populace. And Peter, through no fault of his own, got punched in the stomach and kicked over a bicycle rack. I assaulted the First Lady of the Soviet Union and got a verbal reprimand. Sometimes you just live right. I would say one of the benefits of doing a talk show that I do is the ability to pontificate about almost anything. For example, the controversy about the Elvis Presley postage stamp. Which picture of Elvis to put on the stamp? There was the early Elvis, and others wanted the later Las Vegas Elvis. My solution, from my little bully pulpit, use them both. Skinny Elvis first class, fat Elvis bulk rate. How could this not work? There was the Bill Clinton impeachment controversy. I had a solution that I thought would have pleased everybody. Very simply, just impeach him from the waist down. There are easy answers out there sometimes, and the use of the First Amendment can sometimes give you all kinds of opportunities. I would note that we are in a very dangerous time for journalists. You can ask James Foley or Stephen Sotloff, if only we could. The Committee to Protect Journalists reports that since 1992, 1,077 of our colleagues have died in the line of duty. Over 22 years, that's close to 1 dead reporter per week. For the record, Iraq is the deadliest place to ply our craft, followed by the Philippines, Syria, Algeria, Pakistan, Russia, Somalia, Colombia, India, and Mexico rounding out the top 10. If you're curious what the dead journalists were covering, 46% were covering politics, 39% were covering wars, 23% corruption, and 21% human rights. And of course, things aren't always so easy right here in the good old US of A, as witnessed Ferguson, Missouri, where reporters at various times had to contend with both police and demonstrators. We'll see if the waiting days of Eric Holder's time as Attorney General includes a passion for those civil rights. Regrettably, public trust in the mass media is at an all-time low, with 40% of our fellow Americans, only 40%, having a great deal or fair amount of trust in the mass media, according to the Gallup poll, which says that there hasn't been a majority who feel that way in 11 years. On the positive side, the Museum Institute finds freedom of speech as our most important freedom, chosen by 47% of the people they survey, compared with second place freedom of religion with 10%. In that same survey, 80% agree that it's important for the news media to be an independent watchdog of government. That's up 5% from the previous year. And 46%, believe it or not, believe the media does try to be unbiased, the highest number since that question was first asked 10 years ago.